Welcome back, focused learners, to The Explainer. Today, we are tackling a massive, dizzying, and honestly, utterly brilliant masterpiece. We're talking about Gabriel García Márquez's 100 Years of Solitude. Now, if you've ever felt like your family just keeps repeating the exact same mistakes over and over, or like you're somehow playing out a behavioral script written by your parents long before you were even born, well, you're going to find some incredible value here. We are going to untangle this notoriously complex family tree and in the process reveal some highly relatable real-world life lessons.
Okay, let's just dive right into this. Listen to this quote from Marquez's 1982 Nobel lecture. He's talking about accounts from early explorers, right? People claiming they'd seen pigs with umbilical cords on their backs and chickens with actual, literal gold nuggets in their stomachs. Now, you might hear that and think, okay, this is pure, unadulterated fantasy. No way. But what's really fascinating is that these were real historical accounts from early explorers of Latin America. The surreal fantasy of the novel we're exploring today, it's actually rooted in the downright absurd reality of Latin American history.
So that brings us to magical realism. It's a literary form where odd, eerie, and dreamlike tales are told as if they're just commonplace, everyday events. It's not pure fantasy, like wizards and dragons where there are separate, defined magical rules. Instead, it's a brilliant technique to see the extraordinary in the mundane and to treat the supernatural as totally normal, like it's just another Tuesday.
Because this book spans an epic 7 generations, here is our roadmap. 1. The magic of reality. 2. Echoes of a violent history. 3. Trapped in family loops. 4. The matriarchal anchor. 5. The epidemic of solitude. And 6. Breaking your own cycles.
Let's kick things off with Section 1, The Magic of Reality.
Marquez perfectly balances the gritty, realistic elements of life with just utterly outrageous occurrences. Consider the specific details for a second. Colonel Aureliano Buendía doesn't just lose a few battles, he launches exactly 32 defeated uprisings. It doesn't just reign for a long time, it reigns for precisely 4 years, 11 months, and 2 days. We have Fernandez's crisscross calendar of exactly 42 available days for intimacy, and get this, a priest who magically levitates, but only after drinking a warm cup of hot chocolate. It's wild. But by attaching highly specific numbers and mundane details to these ridiculous events, Marquez forces us to accept the unbelievable as entirely believable.
Moving right along to Section 2, Echoes of a Violent History. To really grasp what is happening to the Buendía family, we absolutely must understand that their town, Macondo, is a microcosm of Colombia's real, tragic history. If we trace the historical timeline, the fictional 100 Years of the town compress several centuries of Latin American history into a manageable text. We see the 1800s colonial founding of isolated settlements, then the brutal War of 1,000 Days between liberals and conservatives from 1899 to 1902, and in 1928, the arrival of foreign imperialism culminating in the horrific banana worker massacre. Marquez is using this family to document the history that official powers often tried to completely erase.
So the crucial point is captured in this staggering number, 200,000. By the mid-1960s, Colombia had witnessed an excess of 200,000 politically motivated deaths. Marquez isn't just writing a whimsical fairy tale here. The sources note he's commenting impartially on the nature of Latin American politics, a historical cycle leaning toward absurdity, mass denial, and the never-ending repetition of tragedy.
That brings us to Section 3, Trapped in Family Loops.
Now, let's explore the core psychological driver of human nature in this story. It's honestly fascinating how clearly these repeating family traits map out across generations. You have the Jose Arcadios on one side. They are strong, impulsive, they confront chaotic reality head-on and are prone to these wild, crazy pursuits. On the other side, the Aurelianos, lucid, withdrawn, constantly deciphering artificial complexities, and haunted by a solitary nature. This perfectly illustrates philosopher Paul Ricoeur's theory of narrative time. These characters are literally trapped in a labyrinth, constantly reincarnating the destiny of their names. They never truly move forward, they just repeat the script.
There's this incredibly profound thought from the matriarch of the family. Once again, she shuddered with the evidence that time was not passing, but that it was turning in a circle. You can just feel the sheer despair in that realization, right? The characters suffer from the illusion of an eternal present. Because they completely refuse to remember and learn from their history, they are entirely unable to escape the ghosts of their ancestors. Time isn't a straight line for the Buendías, it's a whirlpool.
Next up, Section 4, Ursula, the Matriarchal Anchor.
While the men are getting completely lost in their own heads, it's Ursula who actually holds the very fabric of reality together. Just contrast the two paths here. On one hand, you have Colonel Orellano. He is trapped in this vicious circle, endlessly making golden fishes, melting them down, and making them all over again just to avoid dealing with the present reality. But then you have Ursula. She is fiercely grounded in reality. She creates a marvelous, incredibly practical business making candied animal figures to physically and financially sustain 7 generations of her family. She is the ultimate anchor, fighting the destructive, solitary cycles of the men.
All right, Section 5, the epidemic of solitude.
We need to uncover what solitude actually means here, because it's not just about being physically alone. Just follow the progression of the infamous insomnia plague. First, they simply stop sleeping. Okay. Then, they start losing their memory, literally forgetting the names and functions of basic, everyday objects. This leads to total societal chaos and absolute alienation from their own history. Finally, the gypsy Melquiades returns with a magical potion to restore their memory. Marquez is showing us that when societies and families willfully forget their past, they succumb to the absolute disaster of amnesia.
The crucial point is this. Solitude is the spiritual emptiness of repeating mistakes when we are alienated from our own history and lack human solidarity. The true tragedy of the Buendía family isn't that they live in some remote jungle. Their tragedy is their inability to love. They live in a crowded, bustling house, yet they are completely isolated because they act only for themselves, completely disconnected from a shared history or any real empathy for one another.
Finally, let's wrap this up with Section 6, breaking your own cycles.
Let's pull this right into our modern lives today. Ask yourself, are we trapped by time or by our own refusal to remember? Have you ever felt like you are just playing out a script written by your parents? Like maybe you're stuck in a behavioral loop in your relationships, your career, or how you handle stress? The Buendías show us, plain as day, that without self-awareness and historical memory, we are absolutely destined to become the ghosts of our ancestors.
Which leads us to our final, ultimate takeaway. Stop making golden fishes. Stop that pointless, cyclical busy work we all do to avoid facing our reality and our history. Preserve your memory, be acutely aware of your inherited traits, and consciously choose to break your loops. By building meaningful human connections and actually learning from the past, you can avoid your own century of solitude. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer. I really hope this sparks some deep reflection for you, and I'll catch you in the next one.